So welcome back. My name is Cassandra and I'm going to do a short update on the Donkey Kong Jr. project, where we're at with it, and also updates on my two other summer projects, the Simpsons game by Konami and also an Asteroids Deluxe cocktail table by Atari. So let's take a look and see what's going on with the Donkey Kong Jr. Okay, so here we see the cabinet in its current condition, and it's looking pretty great. What I've done here is I have started to cover up with matching paint the scratches that we had, and I'm starting to do a little body fill that we'll sand down. This is going to be a little bit of a time-consuming process to do correctly. I'll do a wet sand with a very fine grain sandpaper and repaint it several times. The good news is some of this damage in here and these screw holes, which I will fill in with dowels, will be covered up by the artwork sticker. Once we get to that point, that will probably be the absolute last thing that we do. But it's starting to look really, really great. And if we back out, the other side also is coming along. We haven't painted this one yet, so you can still see the damage. There was quite a bit of damage to the cabinet on this corner, and the black paint that was here on this one little area is also now gone. There's some laminate damage on the bottom of the side that also I'll fill and repaint, but the color match paint that we got from Lowe's is pretty darn close, so it should look pretty good. On the front, notice we have our Junior marquee there, and this light is now working, but there's nothing inside to play, obviously. We'll get to that in a second. I have removed the front piece, as you can see here, and this is probably the most damaged piece of the cabinet. I've put a lot of fill on this. There's some Bondo, some questionable Bondo work from the previous owner, and these two holes that I can't figure out why the heck they did those. There was actually a piece of large chewing gum over here that someone had just painted straight over. It's one of the most ghetto things I've ever seen on a conversion from a game. This is going to need a little bit of woodwork and just a little bit of TLC. I'll end up having to repaint this entire front piece to make it look great, but it will look good. It's all there. It just needs some love and affection. And the bottom plate also, it's a little bowed. There's a small crack here that I'm going to have to brace, and we'll fill in these holes. But otherwise, the laminate underneath of it is pretty good. I still have a little bit of work to do to get some of this remaining black off, but this will clean up pretty nicely, and we'll repaint the black base and the inset black. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this on the camera. Somebody at one point repainted all this black with a high gloss, which is actually incorrect. It should be a satin gloss, and they stopped on the top and didn't paint the rest of it for some reason. So it has this weird little like stop little area. So we'll clean all that up and have it looking really great. Rolling. Okay, so the other thing we've done here is we've taken off the entire coin mech door. As you can see, there's a lot of damage on this door, so we're going to have a whole new piece fabricated for the front. These coin mechs are also heavily damaged, and notice they're slightly different. One is from a newer and one is from an older Nintendo branded game. Inside, however, the mechanics are okay, and they all seem to work properly, so we'll save all those, and we'll paint up the frame and sand it down and have it look good. But this piece, this coin piece will have to go, this front door piece. It's not savable. Rolling. Okay, on the inside of the cabinet, we've continued to clean up. We have our bar support here for the monitor, now oriented correctly vertical. Remember, this game had been changed to a horizontal monitor at some point in its life. So everything in here is pretty much ready to go. Just the monitor, unfortunately, has been a problem. So let's go take a look at the monitor. Okay, so we have our Sanyo 20EZ monitor, which was kind of the go-to staple monitor for Nintendo games in general. This one is not original to the Donkey Kong Jr. As if you watched the first video, this is a transplant from a Super Punch-Out or a regular Punch-Out. The top monitor, that game has two monitors, one on the top, one on the bottom. And we can tell that from the significant burn-in on the monitor You can see it says fight. It has a number counter. Here it has versus, and it has the 2 pictures of the 2 boxers. We have our bar secure. This will be the bar that mounts it vertically in the cabinet. This monitor, it was working, but with no sense of green and no sense of black. And it was really, really weak as far as its output even then. I put a full cap kit on it. I'm going to turn it around here. Full cap kit, brand new flyback. And I went through, and there's a little, I'm going to swing over here in front. Now, one of the interesting things about Nintendo games is that it was an inverted signal that went to the monitor. Now, most game companies would change it so it was a properly produced signal with red, green, and blue. Nintendo's were reversed. So Sanyo, when they developed these monitors, and Sharp, who also made monitors for the Nintendo systems, never put the circuitry in these monitors to accept a regular signal, only an inverted signal from Nintendo. So what they did in later monitors, they included this little inversion board that would hook here and allow you to connect a non-inversion board into a regular Sanyo monitor. Problem is, this thing is totally boffo broken, and I cannot figure out for the life of me why it's doing what it's doing. There's a kit available on arcadeshop.com that turns the inversion basically back into just a regular monitor by adding the circuitry that was left out originally when it was manufactured back in the early 80s by Sanyo. We've also done that modification to this as well. What we have now with this monitor is a brilliantly bright picture, but it's got a vertical collapse is what we call it, where it's just a singular line. Sometimes that's caused by the monitor being stuck in test mode, but going through some of the transistors, I found some dead ones along the vertical axis, the actual circuit that controls it. We have those coming. Unfortunately, they come from China, which means it takes a while for them to get here. And once we get those, we'll install it, and we'll hope we'll have a working monitor. We're getting it to the point now where probably half the parts on this monitor are now brand new. So we'll just keep on going down that rabbit hole and see what we have. Let's take a look at the control panel.
Rolling.
Oh, hi, welcome back. Just kidding. This is a control panel, and if you notice, it no longer has the graphics on it. The bolts that held the control panel down were pretty rusted, and unfortunately we had to break off. This is an original control panel, which is sad. However, I don't feel too bad that we broke it because it's extremely faded. Mario is missing his red. The Donkey Kong's missing his red. You can tell, just it's so brittle and falling apart. It's seen better days, so we'll get a proper one for this. Underneath, what we see is just the amazing amounts of rust on some of these metal pieces that held the buttons in, and a lot of fatigue. If we go here, this is the joystick. It's just a nightmare. I'm hoping that I can save some of this and rebuild it. I would like to maintain originality as much as I can, but we may have to just get an entire reproduction joystick. The bracket that holds the joystick on to see how, probably from thousands of soft drinks being spilled inside this machine. One of the interesting things about this control panel is, if you notice, there's actually a spot Nintendo put for an extra button, and it's already wired for it. So they were thinking about expansion in the future, that it may turn into some other game in the future that required an additional button, but they never released anything that utilized that button, at least not for the junior panel. And it is wood, which is kind of neat. I always like the wood control panels. We'll sand this down, we'll repaint it black, put new graphics on it. Our buttons are in pretty good shape. We'll probably have to get it again, a new joystick, but this will look great. It's complete, which is nice. There's no really broken bits of the wood. It's another original piece will survive, which is nice. Okay, at this point, we're going to take a look at the other projects we have going on. So let's take a look at those real quick.
Rolling.
Simpsons, 25-inch dedicated cabinet by Konami. This game has been a part of our collection for a little bit. The problem is, when we moved to Seattle about 2.5 months ago, it arrived with issues, and the issues a bad power supply, and a pretty questionable JAMA harness that had been in it since we purchased it. So it just stopped working. One of the other problems we had since we initially got it was some of the sprites would have these lines next to them. And the game, especially if it hasn't been on very long, sometimes will have these kind of terrible sprite lines. However, you can see now, it's working beautifully without a problem. The monitor looks amazing. You can still see, every once in a while you'll see a little line, but usually once it's been on for about 5 or 10 minutes, the problem ceased. So how we did it was very simple. Let's take a look inside real quick. Action. So I put in a new JAMA wiring harness, totally stripped out the old one, which was looking pretty sketchy. Brand new switching power supply. And the interesting thing about these Konami games is the third and fourth player, which are not part of the JAMA harness, have their own special plug that goes right in the board. Konami used these boards for a lot of different games, most famously for the 2 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games, a game called Sunset Riders, very similar for the game X-Men, and a couple other ones like the Cowboys of Mumusha and Asteroids, which only came out in Europe. The plan for this game now is we can start fixing some of the problems on the front, where we have the broken panel on the front of the game. This whole panel where it's cracked and been haphazardly repaired will be replaced. We're going to get new coin doors because the coin doors are all bent. I'll clean up and resand the control panel, and then we'll put new artwork on it. There's also a small little bit of damage in the corner here that we'll fix on that cabinet, a little doink that broke out, but you can see there that the side art's just in terrible condition. But when we restore it, it's going to be a great game, and we're going to put what's called a multi-JAMA harness in it, and I'll get one of the Turtles games, and maybe one of the other Konami 4-player games that will allow you to switch between multiple games using the real hardware, the original boards. So that will be great because you'll have this one huge cabinet in our collection where if someone doesn't necessarily want to play The Simpsons, they can play Turtles or they can play Sunset Riders. It gives it a little more functionality without destroying the original game itself. So this one's well on its way. Now our third project's upstairs and it's almost finished. So let's go take a look at that one real quick. So the last game we have here is the Asteroids Deluxe, which comes with a free cat, which is great. Hi, buddy. Okay. We bought this game off Craigslist for $250. It was in pretty dire condition. I'll have a complete kind of montage video once the restoration is complete. As you can see, it's fully working now. We have a new custom piece of glass. It has a little bit of cat hair on it. The underlay is something I kind of concocted. It's not perfectly correct. There was some Asteroids underlay artwork underneath of it that somebody had repoed poorly. I made these stickers out in Photoshop. I didn't do a very good job cutting them out to reproduce the Asteroids Deluxe. Nobody makes an Asteroids Deluxe underlay for the cocktail. They didn't make a lot of these, so there's probably not a lot of demand for it. As you can see, I just finished redoing one of the legs. It's all been painted with hammered paint. I sanded it down, repainted the bolts. It was pretty disgusting, the legs. The other one, that's why it's on this cart, is almost finished. The other control panel also needs to be completed. When I put the repo decal on it, I got these from this whole game. They did a really good job on these. The problem is that it's not the correct length underneath. I know you can't probably see that. So I had lined it up the way I thought it was supposed to line up, but then it moved a little bit. So this little gold bar here with the shields, it should be up just a tiny bit more, which it does drive me a little bit crazy. It shouldn't, but it's not exactly correct. So I'm going to try to scoot the second one up a little bit more, and this will be the number 2 controller. Maybe people won't notice too much, or maybe eventually I'll just order another one and try it again. But if we look inside, it's in pretty darn good shape. There's a lot of burn-in on this monitor, but you don't really see the burn-in because of the smoked glass. This is all new cardboard shroud, which is nice. And yeah, everything in here is good. We recapped the monitor extensively. We rebuilt the audio board, which is in pretty bad shape. But this was kind of a fun project. It was the accidental $250 Craigslist project that we just couldn't pass up. I'm usually not a fan of cocktails, but this one is actually kind of neat. And the game is somewhat fun. Not a big Asteroids fan myself. Playing it though, over the course of restoring it, I have a new appreciation for Asteroids. So there you go. That's where we're at right now, and hopefully in about a week or so we'll have a lot more progress on the Donkey Kong Jr. We should have a fully restored cabinet at that point, a working monitor hopefully, and even a playable game. So we'll see you then. Thanks for checking out. You can go on my website. Sometimes I blog about some things. I'm working on something right now. Sometimes I don't. Who knows? But thanks for watching. Bye. Bunsy says hi.